All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sam Pisani, Managing Partner of the Logit Group.
And I'm Steve Mail, the Executive Vice President of Innovation and Strategic Partnerships at the Logit Group.
And this is our second year as title sponsors of IIEX. We're thrilled to be here and participating. Looking forward to 2 days of a lot of collaboration. And obviously there's going to be a lot of discussion about AI. But before we get into the details of AI, we thought, how do we start an AI session without asking AI to come up with an icebreaker for us? So last night at the hotel, Steve and I decided to ask ChatGPT to come up with an opening ice-breaking joke for us. I guess it's going to kind of show us how far AI has come and how far it still needs to go. So it took about 12 different prompts and refinements, and it finally came up with this. I'm not sure if it's AI or more of a dad joke, but after 12 attempts, it came up with the, why did AI bring a ladder to IIEX? It heard the stakes were high and it wanted to step up its game. So this is where we are right now with AI.
So there's a lot of practical applications for AI. Joke writing is not one of them as of yet, unfortunately.
Where are we here? So what we want to do today is we want to try and go through basically a gamut of what is being done within the current market research space. And we understand that practitioners and MR professionals have a varying degree of adoption when it comes to AI. Some people are using ChatGPT for simple probes, trying to get some initial information. Some folks are more advanced, using it for data modeling and effectiveness. And some folks are still on the sidelines. Some of you may be kind of waiting to see how to best dive in and use AI in your day-to-day practices. And you're going to see a variety of presentations as well. You're going to see some that are very detailed and technical in nature, that are deep dives, and some of them that are very broad and strategic in their overview. What we want to try to do today is provide some practical strategies and examples of what is being done and what we at Logit are currently harnessing AI for, and how we're immediately implemented it.
So before we dive into some practical examples of ways that we're utilizing AI and implications for what it can do for the work that we're doing, just a quick show of hands. Who's currently using AI either personally or as part of your operations right now? Okay, great. That's a lot of hands. So up here you'll see what I refer to as the AI spectrum, right? And you may be on one part or multiple parts of the spectrum currently. On the left-hand side is kind of the entry point. You're using pre-built UIs like ChatGPT. Maybe you're using it to frame a study that you're working on. Maybe you're asking questions about IR. The middle of the spectrum would be leveraging third-party applications. So these are a little bit more niche and specialized for the work that we're doing, but still off the shelf. You're bringing them in as part of your ecosystem. And lastly, some of you may be further down the line where you're actually developing large language models yourself, either using proprietary data or leveraging it through an API through a third party. So regardless of where you're at on the spectrum, this presentation will have some practical tips and applications that you can take home and start using yourselves.
So AI areas of focus. So what we're doing right now, there are several things. We're using, so Logit, I'll take a step back and say Logit, we're in the field execution, data collection space, largely focused on providing innovative solutions to that effect. So with that, we're using it in several different ways. We're including data warehousing and access, predictive survey routing, so we're actually starting to use AI and empowering our programmers to be able to more quickly, more nimbly, and more accurately program surveys, so they're able to spend more time on the advanced stuff and be more ready to field from the get-go. One thing that we're going to talk about throughout the presentation is the ability to use AI for coding, its robustness, its dynamic features, its ability to do it in real time. And then, of course, analysis and also content creation. So what we're going to do through this presentation, we're going to focus on three things. Data quality, how we've improved data quality through the use of AI, enhancing analysis and summarization. We're going to use dynamic AI coding as a case study for that, and predictive modeling using existing data.
So if AI is conversation 1A in our space, data quality is conversation 1B. So we figured, why not start this off by combining the two and talk about how we can leverage AI for data quality, right? So we get questions a lot from clients saying, is AI an effective tool for, either vetting the quality of data that you're receiving or if we're enhancing the quality of data that you're getting? The answer, of course, is yes. So there's a couple of different ways that you can leverage AI in terms of the work that you're doing for data quality. So the first is looking at open ends that you're gathering on questions. You can use AI to look at the response that's given, and then contextually look at how it corresponds to the question being asked, right? So AI is very helpful in determining whether there's relevance there. The other way that we're using it currently is variance scoring. So if you have a known set of demographics, you have historic data that you've seen, responses from these respondents. If you have a new set of people with similar demographics come into your study, you can use the historic data to profile and vet and see if there's any skews or discrepancies within that data, which is very helpful for. And lastly, I'm not sure, I think all of us collectively have seen this. Either respondents have become much more verbose and engaged in our studies over the past year, or they've started to leverage AI for their responses. We happen to think it's the second, not the first. But we're currently working on ways that we can leverage AI to detect AI. So about 12 months ago, if you said, is this possible? The answer, no. But now we have so much AI-driven content and data that we can now start to see trends that are developing in that and spot it and then intercept it during the course of a study.
And so I think there's one key thing to add, which is we need to be mindful as research practitioners and people that are gathering primary data from respondents, especially in the current world of online panels and bad actors, is that what we have at our disposal, bad actors in our space will also have at their disposal. So it's a constant battle. So in this case, we do truly believe that more is more. And Steve mentioned the issue of relevance and how we're using it. So we've actually added, for many of our clients now, an open-ended question pre-introduction to the survey that is benign, unrelated to the subject matter, something general enough where we just want to see engagement and a real respondent. And our tool, our Question IQ tool, allows a real-time dynamic scoring on a 100-point scale in terms of relevance to that question. And you can set a threshold to say, if that answer, and we've all seen responses, regardless of what you ask, it's good, I don't know, or keyboard crunching, where it'll look at it and say, this is how relevant that response was to that question. Would you like us to permit this respondent to enter the survey and continue, and then still use all of your quality traps, all of your bot detection, all things like that? Or do we want to disqualify that person right here? So it's just another layer that we've added. And what's interesting is the amount of respondents that we're catching at that phase, pre all of the other tools that we've used.
Right. So where we find it to be most beneficial, of course, on consumer studies it's helpful, but we find on B2B work that's where it has the biggest level of impact. So, I mean, we could talk about data quality and AI, how we're using it for a whole other session or two, but because we have limited time, we're going to focus on a specific case study that we did a few months back, where we did a study with financial advisors. So a very specific vertical audience, and we asked them a very specific question: in what ways have the benefits of outsourcing exceeded your expectations? So we're looking for financial advisors who outsource part of their investment management. And then we did a comparative test. So we captured the data and we had AI vet and validate the responses in real time. And then we also had a team of human project coordinators go in after the fact and vet the responses as well. And here's how the data compared. So we had a total of 407 responses to the question. We had it ranked on a scale of no relevance, so this would be either gibberish or non-contextual information, all the way up to high relevance, meaning that whatever the respondent provided made sense in accordance with the question that was being asked. So if you can see here, there's a pretty similar results between both AI and human review. What we did find, a couple things. So of course, because we're able to leverage AI in real time, we're able to keep in line with fieldwork time, so we're not having to go review at the end of fieldwork or in the middle, go back and add additional cases. That can all be done in real time, and then there's not the added incurred cost of having a human doing the review. So that's a positive. The relevance scoring is similar, but we found that AI is actually stricter or more strict in terms of how it grades open-end responses. And the inverse of that is the humans have slightly more variance in their approach. So we found that they tend to give the respondent the benefit of the doubt sometimes, and also they're able to interpret more of the nuance than the AI was able to do. But overall, very similar results.
So looking now, turning to the kind of second subject that we talked about, which is analysis summarization. For our purposes, we're going to basically drill down on AI verbatim coding and taking large amounts of qualitative feedback and coding it either post-field or in real time using AI. And so AI can be a very effective tool for summarizing large data sets, large qualitative data sets, and grouping into themes. Real-time coding is a big benefit for us. We've implemented that. Our clients have adopted that significantly. The beauty of the real-time coding also allows a couple of things that we as researchers weren't able to do in traditionally administered surveys, which is being able to have skip logic, computed variables, anything on the fly based on an open-ended response. We traditionally always have to ask our open-end for unaided. We'd traditionally have to have a follow-up choices that said, at the risk of repeating ourselves, are you aware of any of the following? And then have your skip conditions or your streaming and logic based on that. Now we're able to dynamically take that open-end, code that open-end, stream and skip based on that coded variable in real time. Very, very effective. And the experience for the respondent is that much better. We're going to use a specific example. So in the fall, just before Halloween, we're based in Toronto. We run a monthly Canadian Omni. So we decided to have a little bit of a Halloween element to our monthly omnibus. So we asked a question in the fall of 2023, asking people whether they had experienced, self-report any experience of paranormal activity that they've personally experienced. And if they said yes, we asked people, what happened when you personally had an experience with a ghost? And so what we did is we took the verbatims, we coded them with our traditional coding team, we went through dynamically through AI, and we looked at differences, and a couple of things emerged. One, a lot of similarities with respect to creating main thematic codes and how they're coded within those groups between human and AI coding, which is great. One thing that we did notice, though, was that AI was able to discretely parse out more mentions. So the same data set, same verbatims, AI was actually able to identify more discrete mentions. So we had a greater number of total mentions on the AI side. But what we also found, which is interesting, at the bottom is when we got to some secondary or tertiary codes, some significant differences that we will obviously need to drill down on and have more discussions, but of note, locations with history where very few codes were created from the human coding team, but significantly more from the AI team. And so our question is AI leveraging more just inherent knowledge that it's built up to create those codes, and is that in fact a more accurate representation of the mentions rather than a single or a small group of verbatim coders that are using just their personal knowledge to create those codes? So AI tools helped speed up the coding process, created in large part less variation in some things, more variation in others, which is actually a very interesting finding. Human and AI code lists were extremely similar, which is good, provides some validation to what we've been doing as an industry to this point, but creates speed and the dynamic component to make the process more inexpensive, faster on the research side, and a better experience for respondents at the respondent level. Top mentions were very similar in all cases, more differences when more interpretation was required, as we talked about ghost stories and location, and margin of error is similar between humans and AI.
So for the last practical application section, we're going to look at how you can use AI for predictive modeling. And I think the term predictive modeling means different things to different people, depending upon where you sit in the space and what practical applications you have for yourself and your clients. But the way that we look at it is if you have historic data or if you're capturing data, it's leveraging that data to make predictions or create additional data based off the historic data that you have. So we use it at Logit specifically in a couple of different cases based upon where we sit in the research ecosystem. So we talked about it on the data quality section, but looking at behavior analysis to detect outliers. So if we know how people have responded in the past, we can then use that to predict how respondents may answer again in the future. And we can use that as kind of a threshold for scoring and engage them in follow-up answers if we're seeing things that don't align with what we'd seen or what we would expect.
And it brings up another quality control measure as well, where you can, you've always get those cases in a data set you look at it and like, I don't know if that, we're so concerned about data quality and we're so reticent to accept what we're seeing is like, does that pass my smell test? To be able to have some historical data that you're able to leverage to look at, well, that really looks different to what we were expecting is helpful.
Right, and then what we'll focus on in this particular usage case is how we're using it for predictive routing and segmentation to improve targeting. So I think a lot of times, when we're going out, we're doing research execution, field work, we're really relying on self-profiled data from respondents. So these are targetable qualifications that are known about them. and more we're now trying to find out the unknown, things that wouldn't be profiled or known. So in that case there, we're usually relying on natural fallout of incidents, low incidence rates, hard to get respondents, higher costs, we all know this. So we're looking at how we can leverage historic data, known data on people with similar demographics to improve targeting, improve routing, to bring incidents up and overall sample size and cost down. And then lastly, I'm sure we'll hear about a lot this week, synthetic data. So right now I'd say we're kind of in the early phases of synthetic data. A show of hands, who's heard of synthetic data, or is, okay, everybody, great. We can spend another 20 minutes on synthetic data. I'm sure we all have varying thoughts on that, but just something to keep in mind as we move forward into the future. It's going to be a big theme throughout the next 12 months. So for our particular case study here, we'll focus on how we use it for predictive routing. So we ran this study, again, a few months back. It was a 15-minute, 20% IR study. We were targeting US consumers of specific brands and makes of car models. So for targeting, we were able to leverage age, gender, region, household income, education, and primary decision maker, but we didn't have access to purchase history. So we weren't able to determine what specific makes and models they had purchased. So on the chart on the left here represents what the sample size and incidence looks like without having predictive routing. On the right side is what it looks like with predictive routing. So you can see without using AI, it was a higher overall sample size that was required to be sent and a lower incidence. So we're running around 20% as bid, but on the AI side, when we're using predictive routing, we're able to increase incidence rate by about 3%. So right now we're kind of in the early phases of doing this, and we have limited data to work off of, but the more modeling we do and the more historic data we can add into the predictive routing, the better this is going to get. Incidence rates are going to get higher, and overall cost is going to go down, netting in better response, better engagement and a better satisfaction rate for respondents overall.
So that's the three examples that we want to speak about, but obviously it's not limited to that. I mean, the use of AI is just, it's virtually infinite within our space. What we wanted to also touch upon are a couple of other things that we're doing internally from a field execution side, and also thinking about AI from the perspective that you wouldn't normally think about AI. Like, we think about AI as a obviously innovative technology first methodology, and we use it obviously conversational AI, probative techniques, little qual dives in our quant surveys. We use that a lot, but we're actually now in advanced testing within our call centers to actually have AI caddy agents. So that's either a fully baked out conversational voice AI agent, digital agent that is going to undertake all or most of the survey with our respondents. Benefits to that, of course, are immediate quality and consistency with the way that the interviews are being executed, the ability to scale your call centers and not being limited to call center seats and those limitations, but also the ability to have a better experience with respondents. I mean, if any of you that work in Caddy, have worked in Caddy, or have a component of your practice that's Caddy, you've got agents that are up here, you've got agents that are down here in terms of productivity and quality, their ability to probe, general just detail. And so what we want to try to do is shrink that to get the best possible interview every single time. And what we're doing with AI agents is short surveys. We're able to fully run through the survey. There are obviously other components that are going to impact this in the United States with TCPA, or we're having AI agents screen respondents and then pass them dynamically into a live agent after they've screened. So it's a great way to drop costs, get better engagement with respondents, and still use a very innovative technology and what would be deemed a legacy methodology that we use as researchers.
So lastly, just looking forward, I hope that there were some things in here that you haven't been thinking of and you could take home and implement, or maybe you are already implementing it and it gave you a different way to look at it. But just a couple of things to keep in mind as you move forward. So more so now than ever, there's an importance on data quality, garbage in, garbage out. So if you're using data, historic data, to train an AI model and it has bias, or it has holes in it, it's incomplete, it's going to create an echo chamber. You're going to see more of that in the synthetic or created data that you're generating. Navigating privacy and data security with AI tools. So we're aware of that as an industry with things we've put in place over the past few years, but that's going to multiply as we move forward and AI becomes a bigger part of what we do overall. And then I think the biggest takeaway here is just reflect on current processes that you do internally as a company and identify solutions that you can use AI to sustainably create and grow. And lastly, it doesn't have to be AI or human. It's not a competition. Sometimes the best response or best practice is AI plus human on top.
So we'd love to continue the conversation. Please meet us at booth 1. In conjunction with the start of the conference, Steve has just released his book, AI Empowered, that we've got available. We got both digital downloads and physical copies at our booth. Come and visit and continue the conversation. Thank you so much.
Everybody.